The reality is that when we're talking about passion, we're talking about something very, very different from I'm passionate about playing golf. We want to have a sense that we're here for something more than just the mundane. I go to work, I earn a paycheck, it's wash, rinse, repeat. The secret to understanding the answer to that question, what is your purpose in life, is embedded in understanding your passions. If we could figure out a way to codify and measure passion, we would have a sight line into the purpose that drove people. So in essence, that's what this work is designed to do.
We so often hear people say, follow your passion and life will be wonderful. Well, what if you don't know what your passion is, or you're not exactly sure what you're talking about passion? You know, something that I've used as a hobby or I have a great interest in. I mean, we're talking about a career, what I'm going to do with my life. Well, for once, somebody actually has some answers to it, and I mean quantifiable as well as qualifiable answers to discovering what your unique passions are, what to do with them, and apply them to a wonderful life. Alaina Love worked with the University of Michigan to identify these key attributes within us and help us identify the big ones to really help you figure out and give you the insight that you need to, with aligning with your purpose and your values, have this incredibly wonderful, fulfilling life and effort. I mean, quite frankly, this is something that is good for anyone to see. A lot of incoming and outgoing college students could stand to see this, but for baby boomers, this is especially a wonderful opportunity because, you know, if you think about it, since we were born, life has been coming at us. When we were kids, it was our parents, then school, and then a career, then maybe, you know, a family and marriage. And now we've got the opportunity to make this our turn. But what is my turn? What do I want to do to make sure that these incredible years that I have left ahead of me are maybe some of the best of my life? Alaina Love, by the way, is a former top-level human resources executive on the fast track to the top in a big global pharmaceutical company. And she decided that that wasn't fulfilling for her, and she started this endeavor. She has this incredible team of very smart people, and again, has worked with the University of Michigan in terms of coming up with this scientific process. And then in part two, as I mentioned, you'll have some tools with which to move forward. So first of all, let's define exactly what she means by your passion and what it's not.
Well, I think it's an overused term, this term called follow your passion, because you're right, we do say it all the time, but we don't tell anybody what that really means or how to go about doing it. So for many of us, it's an exercise in frustration. We think, in essence, that passion is something that we can take the shopping cart and go down the health and beauty aisle and find, and then we're terribly disappointed when it doesn't work out that way. The reality is that when we're talking about passion, we're talking about something very, very different from I'm passionate about playing golf, or I really love art, or I love to dance. Those are all hobbies that people engage in that give them a sense of excitement, and maybe in some cases a sense of fulfillment. But the passion that I talk about whenever I use that term is the deeper essence of who you are. It's in essence the outward expression of the deeper purpose that drives you. So passion is the energy of that purpose being expressed in very identifiable ways. When someone's really passionate, you can see it. When they are engaged in what they're doing in a way that gives them a sense of real excitement about life, it's quite obvious. And it's almost as if they're infected with a virus that you want to make sure you get to. So it's a very different way of looking at this notion of passion. And in essence, the work that I do is centered around helping people understand what their passions are. Because we all have very, very distinct sets of passions within us. There are about 10 different, what I'd call archetypes of passion or styles of passion that we exhibit as a result of the deeper purpose that drives us.
Well, before we go into the different archetypes, you hit something else, that the passion is driven by purpose. And quite frankly, that's something else that I hear a lot of people say. But what is the purpose of life? What's the meaning of life? That seems to be one of those almost unanswerable questions. So in your context, which is a practical one, what do I do with that?
Well, I think it's a question that we all struggle with, and most of us spend our entire lives trying to figure it out. We want to have a sense that we're here for something more than just the mundane. I go to work, I earn a paycheck, I eat 3 meals a day, and it's wash, rinse, repeat. We want to have a sense that our lives are bigger than that, that there's some deep meaning for why we're on the planet. So sometimes I'll say to people, if you can't figure out a very eloquent purpose statement that feels like it's resonating with you, just start out by saying, my purpose in life is to exhibit this particular passion that I have. And then over time, how that gets exhibited and what you're really meant to do with it becomes evident. But it takes time. It takes introspection. It's not a, sprinkle pixie dust and suddenly you have this answer. And so it requires of us some deep work that for many people is difficult to do, because it's asking you to very seriously reflect on your life, your experiences, and think deeply about what you're meant to do and what you find fulfillment from as you're doing it, so that you can begin to kind of follow your curiosity. And your curiosity tends to lead you to opportunities to express your passions. Your curiosity tends to lead you to the moments where you'll be able to ultimately express your purpose. And then the the light bulbs start to ignite, and the connections start to be made, and you start to understand, this is why I'm here. This is what I'm meant to do. And then you look for those opportunities over and over again throughout your life to do those same things, maybe in different settings, but to express that purpose over and over again.
Well, I know anyone watching and listening to this is like, okay, great. So in practical terms, how do I do that? But before we get into that, as a point of credibility, and why I'm so excited about being connected with you and having you on this, is that this isn't some woo-woo process. This is based on science and practical sound methodologies. So before we get into the how-to, give me the background of how you came across this from more of a quantitative and scientific standpoint.
It became very clear to me that passion and purpose were indeed connected, that passion was the outward expression of the deeper purpose that drives us, and that while people struggle to articulate their purpose, if we could figure out a way to codify and measure passion, we would have a sight line into the purpose that drove people. So in essence, that's what this work is designed to do. It's codifying the expression of purpose in the form of passion. And we're saying, okay, if we understand this about you, and we can help you understand it about yourself, and we can help you understand the situations in which those passions are likely to have an outlet, you will create a life of thriving. You will have a sense of well-being. You will have a sense of happiness and accomplishment, and you will feel like you are living and working on purpose. So the next big step was figuring out how to do this. So that's where my scientific training came back into the fore. And I thought to myself, let's figure out how to develop an assessment that allows us to predict the passions that people have. And I began to think about what those passions might be based on the experiences that I had had as an HR executive working with leaders all over the world. I decided to put together a study that looked at high potential people. And I looked at them across some 14 different industry segments. I looked at people who were domestic US based. I looked at people who were working in different countries all over the world. And I was assessing them around this notion of purpose and passion, engagement and fulfillment, what it would take to have them stay with their companies for a long time, what really excited them. And as I did this work and then analyzed it afterward, I realized I was beginning to see patterns of passion very distinct patterns of passion creep up over and over again in these interviews that I was having with these high potential leaders. And as I reflected on those patterns, I realized I had been seeing them my whole career. This was not new. I just never connected the dots and saw them as individual categories of passion that we could actually figure out a way to measure. So I identified them and sort of put them into 10 different buckets. And I called those buckets archetypes, passion archetypes. And then we worked together with a team of researchers from the University of Michigan and developed a valid and reliable online psychometric tool called the Passion Profiler. And the Passion Profiler is able to measure how you resonate against all 10 archetypes of passion. It's able to evaluate which particular passions you're actually utilizing in the work environment. It's able to measure your sense of connection to, or affiliation to, or engagement with your work. And then it measures something that I haven't seen with other instruments of this type. It actually is able to identify the propensity that you have for thinking and reflecting in a contemplative manner, both about your personal life experiences and your work experiences. And in essence, we're measuring how you use those experiences to learn and grow and develop. So it's a very, very powerful, reliable tool with a lot of scientific rigor behind it. We've been using it with leaders, teams, and individuals for over 10 years now. Thousands, tens of thousands of people have gone through the instrument, and it's a powerful life changer when you experience that tool, when you walk away from it with a deeper understanding of yourself, and then you walk away with, in essence, a compass, an internal GPS system that can help point you to the situations that are going to be situations where you'll likely be able to use those passions and create an environment in which you thrive.
I did it. I took the test, and I found out what my 3 key archetypes were, and the characteristic strengths and the potential vulnerabilities. I also shared this, with my companion of multiple decades, and she was like, "Yeah, spot on." So whether I take the test or not, it kind of moved me forward then on the kinds of things that I would identify, and maybe you could work in then like what these different archetypes are, because I think people might have a lot of different perspectives on what an archetype is or could be.
There are 10, as I said, archetypes. We all have all 10 archetypes within us, all of us, to greater or lesser degrees. The trick is really understanding what your top 3 are, because our research has shown us that if we understand someone's top 3, we have a fairly good idea of kind of what their passion DNA is, how they're wired from a passion perspective, what strengths they're likely to enjoy because of those passions, what vulnerabilities they might be more subject to because they're someone who has that particular passion. And armed with that information, there's a whole lot that you can do to sort of frame the way you want to live your life, the kind of work you want to do. So the 10 passion archetypes are things like creator, conceiver, discoverer, processor, teacher, connector, altruist, healer, transformer, and builder. And all of those archetypes have a particular sort of operational focus that is distinctive for that particular archetype. Now, I really want to be clear about something here, because people often get confused about this. This tool is not designed to measure your skills. There are lots of other tools out there that do that and do it very, very well. The Passion Profiler is designed to measure your passions, the deeper energies that emanate from the purpose that drives you. So you might find that you are doing work that is associated in your mind with a particular archetype, and you're very good at doing that. but it's not particularly fulfilling to you. And that's because you're operating from a set of skills. You're not operating from skills and passions together. So that's really an important point of clarity here. Many of us are skilled to do things for which we have little passion. I always say I'm great at cleaning bathrooms, but I really don't like doing it. So we all have that experience.
That is an important distinction. Just because you can do it and just because you can do it well doesn't mean you want or like to do it. And I would think that especially
Absolutely.
becomes a realization when you get over 50 and you get in this third phase of life where it's like, okay, I've kind of done what I wanted to do and I'm not sure I really wanted to do it, or I'm certainly tired of doing it. Now what?
Well, I think we have a very different perspective on our lives at different stages of our lives. And I want to get into that in just a bit, because there's really important data out there that people should know about and should incorporate into the way they think about their lives going forward, especially in that sort of what I call the Renaissance phase of your life. You know, some people call it retirement. I don't think of it as that. I think it's a Renaissance phase where you're reinventing yourself in many ways, or you're finally embracing the things that you have known to be true about yourself and never given honor to in the way in which you worked or lived. And you look at this phase of your life as the opportunity to do that. But just getting back to the archetypes for a second, because you were asking me, how would you use this information if you knew it about yourself? And I would say in myriad ways. I was working, for example, with a client just yesterday, and two of her archetypes are discoverer and processor. So for her, the excitement is about taking information, taking data, taking what it feels like chaos, and putting form around it. And when she can put form around it, she feels a sense of control, a sense of satisfaction, a sense of direction. This particular person happened to be working for a company that's undergoing significant transition. When I tell you transition, I'm like, yesterday is not the same as today, won't be the same as tomorrow. Just, you know, kind of a crazy ongoing evolution of the organization. And for her, that the feeling of frustration that she had from that experience was very, very high, and she was grappling with why. And I said, well, you know, if you're a discoverer processor, you operate in, you know, you like a swim lane. You know, you like to have very clearly articulated goals. You like to know where you're going. If you're working in an organization that's under significant upheaval and transition, that's not available to you, because the organization is figuring it out, right? This is a state of flux, and you may not necessarily know what the swim lane is, because the swim lanes are moving every day. So for her to feel a sense of comfort and thriving in her work, she needed to look for really a more stable, well-defined work environment, work setting, either within the organization she was with or with another one, versus someone who, for example, has a builder archetype, and I meet lots of those people. They tend to be folks who are driven, you've got that archetype, right? Driven to achieve goals. And it's sort of like, if the goal hasn't been attempted before or achieved before, it's even more exciting to work on. And the fact that there's no sort of playbook for how to do it, for people who are builders, is fine. In fact, they really don't want you to draw the roadmap for them. They'd much rather just say, okay, I'm going to that goal. I'll figure out how to get there. Maybe I'll be figuring it out as I go, because I'm not going to do a whole lot of detailed planning about how I'm going to get there. I'm just, like the processor would, for example, I'm just going to leave the starting gate, and if there's an obstacle or an obstruction in my way, I'm going to figure out a way around it, over it, under it, or through it. But nothing is going to stop me from getting to this goal. So when they're in a dynamic environment, and when they're in an environment where there's a high level of ambiguity, when there is a high level of desire for big time goals without necessarily game plans for how to get there, those folks thrive. They love it. So this is critical information. to understand about yourself. Who am I from a passion perspective? Who am I from the perspective of my skill set? Who am I from the perspective of my values? And where those three intersect, your skills, your passions, and your values, that sweet spot where those three intersect is where you want to play, both in work and in your life, so that you can develop mastery over your passions. And that's really all the mastery really is. It's understanding what strengths you enjoy as a result of your passions and how you've been using them. And I always tell people, look at the last 6 months and evaluate which of the strengths have shown up for you, because they're probably the ones that you've relied upon, you've been using. As well as what are the vulnerabilities that you struggle with based on your particular passions. And then what are the situations that are likely to evoke you experiencing those vulnerabilities. And the more you understand about that, the more you understand the situations where I'm going to be able to use my strengths and the situations that are going to evoke the likelihood of you stumbling into a vulnerability, the more you develop passion mastery.
With a lot of our audience, as people over 50, they might be finding themselves kind of in nowheresville. It's like, well, I don't want to keep doing what I'm doing now or what I've been doing. Now I have this opportunity to maybe do what I want to do. I'm just not sure what it is. So what you were just saying sounds to me to be practical in course correction and evaluating things, but what if I'm just kind of dealing with the epitomal blank piece of paper and it's like, I don't even know where to go. And even if I knew this information, okay, great, that's me, but what do I do with it? How do I manifest it into a new direction?
I was speaking with someone in a coaching session earlier this week who's in a very senior position in a merchandising organization, a very successful high-end merchandising organization, who has a creator archetype, which is the archetype of the artist. And she also had an altruist archetype and a transformer archetype. And she said, I've been really successful at what I'm doing, and I've been, in this organization for 15 years now. She said, but I realized that I'm not gaining a lot of fulfillment from this anymore. I really need to be doing something different, and I frankly am searching to figure out what that is. So for her, taking the Passion Profiler was an exercise in gaining more clarity around potential direction that she might take. Well, I'm making a long story short, but what was very interesting about the conversation is that this is somebody with a creator archetype. She's in the fashion industry, and you would think that she'd have plenty of outlet for that artistic side of herself. But the reality was, in the roles that she was in, she didn't have that. And I asked her, are you using this outside of work? What are you doing that's artistic outside of work? And she said, I'm really ashamed to say, nothing. I used to paint, I used to draw, I used to get involved in acting, I played the piano, but I'm not doing any of those things anymore. And I'm beginning to realize more and more that that's been a mistake. And I said it absolutely has been, because people I know who have a creator archetype that don't exercise that archetype generally suffer significantly. And I said it's going to start affecting your health, mental and physical health. She said it already is. So she said, as I'm looking at what comes next, she said, I'm just really wondering where to take this. And I said, well, you have an altruist archetype, which means you want to do something for the higher good. For you, it's being part of an organization that's committed to more than just itself, but committed to its community, committed to delivering on the promise of its brand, committed to perhaps making life better for others, might be an important thing for you to think about. And I said, coupled that with this artistic side of you, and I said, maybe for you, doing more in philanthropic types of organizations might make a lot of sense, especially if they have an artistic focus. And she said, well, it's funny that you should say that, because that's actually something that I've been interested in, and I didn't know if I should pursue it, and if I had what it took to pursue it. And I said, well, based on your passions, you absolutely do. She had a very high altruist score. So for her, it wasn't just about being successful and making a lot of money, and or for the organization to be successful and make a lot of money. It was about making a bigger difference. That was a real driver of fulfillment for her. Certainly, if she coupled that in an organization that had an artistic focus, that would fit with her creator archetype. And if she could take what that organization was doing and take her business skill set and use her transformer archetype to help reinvent the organization, maybe transform it and make it better in some way, then that would be the combination of all three of her archetypes in a field that was very different from the field she's in right now. So those are sort of the pieces of the puzzle that we very often need to take a set of skills that we've developed someplace and figure out how to apply them in an environment that might be different from what we've been doing, but where we can bring our passions to the party as well. And that combination is pretty unbeatable. It really is.
It sounds like it strikes me as one of those things in some cases where, like with her, where it's like, yeah, I know this, but I haven't been acting on it. I haven't been embracing it. And it's like, well, duh, yes, I need to have an outlet for this, or maybe that's my new direction. So that kind of, I could have had a V8 head slap. It's an awakening to things you already know. Is that essentially correct?
It is. I mean, what the passion profiler does for many, many people is validate what they believed to be true about themselves but didn't have the words to describe. And it gives them clear direction based on who they are. It gives them permission to just be who they are and celebrate who they are, rather than feeling like there's something about myself I have to correct.
A moment ago, you mentioned people over 50, Renaissance period. How does all of this apply, especially to those of us and people who are looking to reinvent themselves or take a new direction, certainly do anything but retire? And maybe I can't even retire, but at least if I've got to find another job, find something that's more appropriate for me.
Well, the first thing I want to tell people over the age of 50 is that this is like the best time that you've got coming up ahead of you. When we're over 50, people over 50 are looking back and saying, it would be so cool to be 25 again and know everything I know now, right? And have all of the, glow of youth. But what is true is that you're at a phase in life where the trajectory for you is up, and the opportunity to really sort of embrace your purpose and express your passions is actually coming to its highest level. So what's interesting is I'm working on another book, which, gosh, I hope I finish sometime soon, but the title of which is Passionality. And part of what I'm doing in this book is looking at both the art and the science of finding our purpose and living our passions in all aspects of life. And as part of the research for this book, I came across a series of studies that look at the degree of happiness that people experience throughout their lifetimes. And what the studies really show is that there is a happiness curve, for lack of a better word, and it's shaped like a U. And when you're, 18 to 25, you're up here on the high end of the U. You get into your career, you start to have some experiences in the career and life starts to kick in, and you start gradually progressing down the trough of the curve. When you're in your about 50 to 55, you start coming up out of it. By the time you're 60 or so, you're coming back up to the top end of the curve on the other side. And you're actually at a phase in your life where you have deep capacity for reflection. In fact, we did some research on the Passion Profiler just last summer with Monmouth University's psychology department. And they found that people that were age 50 and above were actually more reflective, the most reflective population of people in the entire data sample that we sent to them. So we had people in all age ranges the people in that group were extremely reflective, and there was a direct connection between one's capacity for reflection and one's capacity to build engagement with the work that they were doing. As engagement and reflection, as reflection went up, so did engagement, and as reflection went down, so did engagement. So people who are 50 and above, they tend to be the folks who are likely to be more engaged with their work because they're willing to reflect on themselves and on their experiences. So for me, that 50 and above time of our lives is really good news, because it's probably a time where, because of our capacity for reflection being honed and being very well developed by that time, almost like a muscle that we've been working on all of our lives that gets really strong in our 50s, we're able to courageously embrace our desires to do things that are meaningful to us. And we're at a phase in our life where meaning matters more than money. And we look at things and say to ourselves, if not now, when? So we start to move forward with our exploration of what the possibilities might be for us and what new and different things we want to embrace. And so I always suggest to people at that age in life, if there's something that interests you, if you're curious about something, explore it. Don't ignore it, explore it. Find as many people as you can who know something about it. Talk to as many people as you can who are maybe doing something similar. Learn as much as you can about it. And if it makes your heart sing, you know you're on the right road. And with the information on your passions, you can figure out a way to make that road be the very best and most well-traversed path for you possible. I think that having a sense of who you are is the best ammunition when it comes to knowing where to start, because it eliminates a lot of things that are probably not going to work for you, and you don't want to waste time exploring things that are not going to work for you. So, having the passion, understanding of your passion and the understanding of your skills as a first step I think that's critical to do. And I think that you have to be sort of brutally honest with yourself about that. If you take an assessment and you know what your passions are, that's straight up information that you can use. If you look at the years of work and experiences that you've had and you know where your strengths are as far as your skills are concerned, that's important information to have. The other piece that's really critical to get right is to be able to clearly articulate what your values are and to understand what those values look like in action. Because if you can't tell me that you value X and this is what X looks like when it's happening, then you don't really understand your values. If you say where to start, I say understand your passions, understand the skill sets that you've gained over the years, and do not limit your thinking to those skill sets only being applicable in one particular industry or one particular function, because many skills can cross professional lines, can cross to functional areas. Understand what your values are so that you can look for organizations or opportunities that align with those particular values. And then I think the other thing that's really important is to resist the temptation to, now that I have this information, I'm going to apply for everything that looks like that. Instead, take the extra step of meeting with people, of talking to people who are in fields that you think you might be interested in becoming involved in, and understand what their story is, what their narrative is, what their experience has been like, what they've learned about themselves through the work. What would it be like to be part of that kind of an industry or organization? Do your homework, gather more facts, and validate what you believe to be true about that particular industry or that particular function. Then you're armed with a lot of information, a lot of good information, to begin to conduct a search and to begin to think about, these are the things I want to apply for, or this is the new direction I want to try to take. And on top of that, you've gathered a whole bunch of other people as resources because you've talked to different people who are doing it. And what I find by and large is most folks are happy to help you. If you're looking for a reference, or you're looking for someone that you can talk to who's in that particular industry, most people are willing to say, oh, I know somebody and I can connect you. So LinkedIn is your friend. Your Facebook contacts are your friends, your family, your friends, colleagues. Those are people who can help you, but they can't help you unless you understand who you are, and unless you understand what you want. Because if they're going to go out on a limb and make a connection for you, they have to make that connection with full insight into what it is you're looking for. And the only way to articulate is to spend time doing your own work to understand that about yourself.
If I wanted to hook up with you and your team and go through the Passion Profiler, kind of quickly walk us through what the different steps would be and the different degrees that you could go with it.
Oh, sure. We've tried to make it really easy. We do a lot of work with large multinational companies all over the world, and it's great when you happen to be in a company that can pay for us to come in and do workshops with teams and that sort of thing. But for the average individual who maybe doesn't have that access or in their organization and just wants to explore this for themselves, we've made it pretty easy. You can go to a website that is called mypassionality.com, mypassionality.com, and make sure you put the my in front of the word passionality, or you're gonna, we're just a couple of keystrokes away from a porn site. So mypassionality.com. And when you go to that website, you will see a link there where you can purchase a code to take the Passion Profiler. And what it will do is give you a code that will allow you to take an abbreviated version of the Passion Profiler that will just give you information on your top 3 passion archetypes.
And I'll mention I did it and it was very inexpensive.
Yeah, right now the price is $11.99. So it's not a budget breaker by any stretch of the imagination.
That's $11.99.
And 99 cents, yeah. Exactly. So for you too, for the price of $11.99, can figure out what your passions are. I mean, we're really trying to do this as a service to help people get started answering some of these challenging questions that you and I have been discussing today, because there needs to be a place where people can go to start. And so this is a great place for beginning your journey of self-exploration, of introspection, that will, that then arms you with the data and information on yourself that you need to carry forward with some of the other decisions that you might make going forward. It's a really great place to start. For those individuals who want to do more, we have a team of coaches who are certified facilitators in the Passion Profiler. We can set you up to take the full version of the Passion Profiler and connect you with a coach who will provide you with anywhere as short as an hour-long coaching session to a full coaching experience that could last over 6 months time period. So it depends on what you and that coach work out as far as what you need. To do that, the easiest way is to just contact us with that request at info@mypassionality.com.
So next step, do it. I mean, it's $11.99. And at the very least, I think you'll find it validating, and I really think you'll find it insightful. And whether you just take that or go on to talk to the coaches, I mean, this is an investment in your future. This is a way to get started in a direction that could make the decades ahead of you the most fulfilling of your life. By the way, stay tuned. There's going to be a lot more from Alaina. And in fact, there's another interview that we're posting with her perspective as a former top-level HR executive about boomers in the workplace. It is a must-see if you're looking for work or if you're an HR professional.